The moment you finally get what you always wanted, the promotion, the money, the relationship, the followers, the validation, why does the mind still whisper, something is missing? That question has silently haunted millions of people. Because most people don't know this truth. The biggest prison in life is not a room made of iron bars. It's a mind that never stops running. Imagine this. A young man wakes up every morning already tired. Not physically, mentally. Before his feet touch the ground, his brain is already fighting invisible battles, comparing his life to others, replaying old regrets, worrying about the future, chasing goals he never even questioned, smiling in public while quietly drowning inside. And maybe that young man is you. We live in a world where people know how to scroll endlessly but don't know how to sit silently with themselves for even 5 minutes. We know how to build careers, impress strangers, collect achievements, but nobody teaches us how to understand our own mind. That's where real transformation begins. Not outside, inside. Because the quality of your life is shaped by the quality of your thoughts. Most people spend their entire lives trying to control the world around them, while never learning how to control what's happening within them. And that's why even successful people can feel empty. Even wealthy people can feel anxious. Even loved people can feel lonely. The mind becomes a noisy marketplace. One voice says, "You're not enough." Another says, "You're falling behind." Another whispers, "What if you fail?" And slowly, without realizing it, people become slaves to thoughts they never consciously chose. But what if peace is not something you find? What if peace is something you train? Think about athletes. Nobody expects a weak body to suddenly run a marathon. Muscles are trained, endurance is trained, discipline is trained. So why do we expect an untrained mind to stay calm in chaos? The truth is, your mind has been trained your entire life. Just unconsciously. Every comparison trained insecurity. Every distraction trained impatience. Every angry reaction trained emotional weakness. Every addiction to approval trained dependence. And after years of this conditioning, people wonder why they feel lost. A distracted mind becomes a suffering mind. But the beautiful thing about the human mind is this: it can be retrained. Imagine your thoughts are like seeds. If every day you plant jealousy, fear, negativity, ego, and constant comparison, eventually your inner world becomes a jungle of suffering. But if you plant awareness, gratitude, purpose, compassion, and discipline, slowly your life begins to feel lighter. Not because the world changed, because you changed. One of the greatest lies society teaches is that happiness lives in achievement. If I get this job, then I'll be happy. If I get married, then I'll feel complete. If I earn more money, then I'll finally relax. But life keeps proving something strange. People reach their dream destination and still feel restless because external success cannot heal internal chaos. Imagine carrying a glass of muddy water everywhere you go. You keep changing the scenery around you. New cities, new relationships, new goals. But the water remains muddy. At some point you realize the problem was never the scenery. It was the water inside the glass. And the human mind is exactly like that. We spend years decorating our external life while neglecting our internal world. Nobody wants to sit alone with their thoughts anymore. Silence feels uncomfortable because silence reveals what distraction hides. That's why people constantly need noise. Music in the ears, phone in the hand, television in the background, notifications every few minutes. Because the moment silence arrives, the mind starts speaking truths we've been avoiding. Maybe you're exhausted. Maybe you're insecure. Maybe you're deeply afraid of not being enough. And instead of healing these things, people bury them under entertainment and productivity. But buried pain doesn't disappear. It waits. And eventually it leaks into relationships, anger, anxiety, burnout, and emptiness. Real growth begins the moment you stop running from yourself. There's a powerful difference between being alone and feeling lonely. Loneliness is when you dislike your own company. Solitude is when you discover it. Most people fear solitude because they've never built a friendship with themselves. Their self-worth depends entirely on how others see them. One compliment makes them happy. One criticism destroys them. One ignored message ruins their mood. Why? Because their identity lives in other people's hands. But imagine how powerful it becomes when your peace no longer depends on external approval. That's freedom. Real confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. A tree doesn't scream about how strong its roots are. It simply stands firm during storms. And human beings are the same. People who truly know themselves stop chasing validation everywhere. They stop performing constantly. They stop pretending to be someone else just to fit in. Because pretending is exhausting. Think about how much energy people waste trying to maintain images, trying to appear successful, trying to appear happy, trying to appear perfect. Meanwhile, internally, they are collapsing. The modern world rewards performance more than authenticity. But performance without inner peace eventually leads to burnout. You can fool social media, you can fool coworkers, you can fool relatives, but you cannot fool your own mind. At night, when everything becomes quiet, you meet yourself, and in that silence, truth always speaks. One of the deepest lessons in life is understanding that thoughts are not facts. This changes everything. Just because your mind says, "I'm a failure," doesn't make it true. Just because your mind says, "Nobody cares about me," doesn't make it reality. The mind is like weather. Some days stormy, some days clear. But most people identify completely with every passing thought. A negative thought arrives and suddenly they become the thought. But awareness creates distance. Imagine sitting beside a road watching cars pass. You observe them, but you don't jump into every vehicle. Thoughts work the same way. You don't have to enter every thought your mind produces. This is where inner peace begins. Observing without immediately reacting. Most suffering comes not from situations themselves, but from the stories we attach to them. Someone ignores your message. Immediately the mind creates a story. They don't respect me. They must be upset. I'm not important. One small event creates emotional chaos because the mind invents meanings constantly. But awareness interrupts that process. It asks, is this absolutely true? And suddenly the mind loses its grip. The human ego is another invisible force controlling people's lives. Ego isn't just arrogance. Sometimes ego looks like constant defensiveness. Sometimes it looks like needing to win every argument. Sometimes it looks like refusing to apologize. Sometimes it looks like silently comparing yourself to everyone. The ego constantly asks one question: how do I appear? But the soul asks a different question: who am I becoming? That difference changes everything. An ego-driven life becomes exhausting because it depends entirely on external comparison. There will always be someone richer, more attractive, more successful, more talented. If your identity depends on being better than others, you'll never rest, because comparison has no finish line, and social media has turned comparison into a daily habit. People compare their behind-the-scenes pain to other people's highlight reels. They compare their beginning to someone else's peak, and slowly, gratitude disappears. A person can have food, shelter, family, opportunity, yet feel miserable because someone else appears happier online. This is why protecting your mind matters more than ever. Not every voice deserves entry into your consciousness. Not every opinion deserves emotional power over you. Imagine your mind as a home. Would you allow random strangers to enter your house all day screaming negativity? No. Then why allow destructive thoughts and toxic influences unlimited access to your inner world? Inner peace requires boundaries. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is disconnect from constant noise. Sit quietly, breathe, observe your mind, because clarity doesn't come from overstimulation, it comes from stillness. People often think peace means escaping life, but true peace means remaining centered while life happens. Storms will come. Failures will happen. People will disappoint you. Plans will collapse. Loss is unavoidable, but suffering multiplies when the mind resists reality. Imagine trying to stop ocean waves with your hands. Impossible. Life moves constantly. Change is the nature of existence. Yet people cling desperately to permanence. They want relationships never to change, youth never to fade, success never to fluctuate. But attachment creates fear. Fear of losing, fear of change, fear of uncertainty. And fear quietly steals the present moment. A person worried constantly about tomorrow cannot fully live today. One of the greatest human tragedies is that people postpone life. I'll rest later. I'll enjoy life after success. I'll spend time with family after I become stable. But later is never guaranteed. Life is happening now, not after your next achievement, not after perfect circumstances arrive. Now. And many people realize this too late. They spend decades climbing mountains only to discover they ignored the beauty around them the entire journey. Presence is a superpower in a distracted world. To truly listen when someone speaks. To fully taste food without scrolling. To walk without constantly checking notifications. To sit with loved ones without mentally being somewhere else. These simple moments are becoming rare. But ironically, they are where life actually exists. The modern mind is addicted to stimulation because silence feels unfamiliar. But silence is where wisdom grows. Think about muddy water again. The only way it becomes clear is by allowing it to settle. The same thing happens to the mind. Constant distraction keeps thoughts stirred endlessly. Stillness allows clarity to emerge naturally. That's why practices like meditation feel difficult initially. People sit quietly for 5 minutes and suddenly realize how chaotic their inner world has become. But that realization is not failure, it's awareness. And awareness is the first step toward freedom. Most people live their entire lives unconsciously reacting. Someone criticizes them. Anger instantly controls them. Something goes wrong. Anxiety consumes them. Someone succeeds. Jealousy appears automatically. They never pause long enough to examine their reactions. But conscious living means creating space between stimulus and response. That space changes destinies. A person who masters their reactions masters their life. Imagine two people facing the exact same failure. One collapses emotionally, convinced life is unfair. The other learns, adapts, grows stronger. Same event, different mindsets. This is why mindset shapes reality more than circumstances. Your outer world often reflects your inner state. An angry mind sees enemies everywhere. An insecure mind sees rejection everywhere. A grateful mind sees opportunities everywhere. Life becomes a mirror. One dangerous habit destroying modern happiness is overthinking. Overthinking feels productive, but often it's just fear wearing a disguise. The mind keeps replaying scenarios, trying to gain certainty. What if this happens? What if I fail? What if they judge me? But most imagined disasters never happen. And even when they do, humans are far more resilient than they realize. The mind wants guarantees before action. Life gives none. Courage is moving forward despite uncertainty. Think about children. They laugh easily, forgive quickly, stay curious naturally. Why? Because they live in the present. Over time, society fills people with fear, status obsession, pressure, and endless comparison. Adults become disconnected from wonder. Everything becomes performance and survival. But deep fulfillment often comes from simplicity. A meaningful conversation, a sunrise, helping someone, laughing genuinely, feeling connected. The problem is not that joy disappeared. The problem is that people became too distracted to notice it. Many people chase purpose as if it's hidden somewhere far away, but purpose often grows through service. The human heart feels most fulfilled not when constantly consuming by work, but when contributing. That's why even wealthy people can feel empty, while someone with very little can feel deeply fulfilled. Because meaning is not built through accumulation alone, it's built through connection, contribution, growth, love, service. A life focused only on what can I get eventually feels hollow, but a life focused also on what can I give creates depth. The paradox is beautiful. The more obsessed people become with themselves, the more disconnected they feel. The more they genuinely serve others, the more fulfilled they become. But service doesn't always mean grand gestures. Sometimes it means listening fully, being kind when stressed, helping without expecting applause, encouraging someone who feels invisible. Small acts carry enormous power. The world changes not only through massive revolutions, but through millions of small conscious actions. Your energy affects people more than you realize. Have you ever entered a room and immediately sensed tension? Or met someone whose calmness made you feel peaceful instantly? Human beings transfer emotional states constantly. That's why protecting your energy matters. And no, protecting your energy doesn't mean becoming cold or isolated. It means becoming intentional. Not every argument deserves your participation. Not every criticism deserves your attention. Not every battle deserves your emotional investment. A mature mind learns the difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is impulsive. Response is conscious. Reaction is emotional slavery. Response is inner mastery. And mastery requires discipline. Discipline is deeply misunderstood today. People think discipline is punishment. But real discipline is self-respect. Waking up early when laziness whispers, sleep more. Exercising when excuses appear. Controlling anger instead of exploding. Choosing growth over comfort. Every small act of discipline strengthens identity, because each decision teaches your mind who you are. If every day you break promises to yourself, eventually self-trust disappears. But when you consistently honor your commitments, confidence grows naturally. Not fake confidence. Real confidence. The kind built through evidence. Your habits silently shape your future. A person becomes what they repeatedly practice. Repeated distraction creates a distracted life. Repeated gratitude creates a grateful mind. Repeated negativity creates bitterness. Repeated awareness creates wisdom. People often wait for motivation before changing, but action creates motivation more often than motivation creates action. You don't become disciplined after feeling inspired. You become disciplined by practicing discipline. And slowly, your identity transforms. One hidden reason people struggle with peace is unresolved attachment to the past. The human mind loves replaying painful memories. Mistakes, embarrassment, heartbreak, failures. It keeps reopening old wounds, hoping the past will somehow change. But the past is a closed chapter. Learning from it is wisdom. Living trapped inside it is suffering. Forgiveness becomes powerful here, not because others always deserve it, but because you deserve freedom. Holding resentment is like drinking poison, hoping someone else suffers. Bitterness chains the person carrying it. Forgiveness doesn't mean approving harmful behavior. It means refusing to let pain permanently control your inner world. And perhaps one of the hardest forms of forgiveness is forgiving yourself. Many people carry invisible shame for years. Past decisions, missed opportunities, moments they wish they could erase. But guilt can either become a prison or a teacher. Human beings are imperfect by nature. Growth requires mistakes. A person who never fails never evolves. The important question is not, have you fallen? The important question is, what did falling teach you? Self-compassion matters because constant self-hatred never creates lasting transformation. You cannot bully yourself into peace. Real growth combines honesty with compassion, acknowledging flaws without defining yourself by them. Another deep truth is that emotions are temporary visitors. No feeling lasts forever. Not anxiety, not sadness, not anger, not even happiness. Everything moves, yet when painful emotions arrive, People panic as if the feeling will consume them forever. But emotions behave like waves. Resisting them often strengthens them. Observing them calmly allows them to pass. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions. Suppression creates emotional explosions later. It means feeling emotions consciously without becoming controlled by them. Crying doesn't make someone weak. Being emotionally aware is strength. The strongest people are not emotionless. They simply know how to process emotions without drowning inside them. Relationships also change completely when awareness grows. Many people enter relationships hoping another person will complete them. But no human can permanently fill an inner void caused by self-disconnection. That's too heavy a burden. Healthy relationships are not built on possession. They're built on partnership, growth, respect, presence. Many relationships fail because people listen to respond instead of listening to understand. Everyone wants to be heard. Few people truly hear others. Love is less about dramatic words and more about consistent attention. Being fully present, being patient, choosing understanding over ego. And sometimes love means letting go gracefully when something no longer aligns. Attachment often disguises itself as love, but attachment says, "I need you to make me whole." Love says, "I appreciate you while remaining whole within myself." That difference creates healthier connections. The people you surround yourself with shape your mind profoundly. Energy is contagious. Spend enough time around negativity and your thinking darkens. Spend enough time around growth-oriented people and your mindset expands. This doesn't mean abandoning everyone struggling. It means becoming conscious of influence. Imagine trying to stay healthy while consuming poison daily. Mental environments matter too. Books, conversations, content, friendships, all of it shapes consciousness slowly. Protecting your inner world is not selfish, it's necessary. There's also incredible power in gratitude, not fake positivity, real gratitude. The ability to notice what still exists instead of obsessing only over what's missing. The human mind naturally focuses on problems because survival instincts evolved that way. But constantly focusing on lack creates chronic dissatisfaction. Gratitude shifts perception. A simple meal becomes meaningful. A conversation becomes valuable. A normal day becomes a gift.